my peoples, what's up? Welcome back to Shelf Stories, the channel that tells tales from games, books, and life. I am your host, Jason. Thank you so much for stopping by for this latest episode of Good Trouble, the series where I engage in essential above-the-table conversations that at least I feel are necessary in the board gaming space in the spirit of education and compassion. This one's going to be as short as I can make it, a little bit shorter than my other videos on cultural topics, because I want to be very specific in the way that I address this very concerning situation we have. Greg Spence, CEO of Broken Token, as I'm recording this, is stepping down as CEO after some allegations of improper sexual behavior by a young woman, Ashley Taylor, who used to work for them, put up a blog talking about that, and then, all sorts of stuff has happened. So there's so much to talk about. And yeah, I don't want to be a person that just wades into every controversy. I really don't. But there's an aspect to this. There's a very particular aspect of this that gets to me as a mental health therapist, as a marriage therapist, my full-time job, and also as a man. So I want to address this particular video to men. And my project, one of the projects I have here on Shelf Stories, I've done multiple videos on it, and this is going to be another in that series to help men be better. Because we got some issues that we got to deal with, and I like to try to help this along as much as possible. Okay, so August 18th or thereabouts, Ashley Taylor, who was an employee of the Broken Token, from the big inserts for Gloomhaven and all your big games, an employee posted a blog on Medium, and I'll post the Medium blog if I can find the link in the video. Very graphic, very disturbing. A multi-year depiction of sexual intimidation and manipulation. Just not a good situation at all. Getting into a relationship with the CEO, feeling like she had to be in the relationship because of power differential and needing the job and all kinds of stuff. Please, it's not something I want to go into. That's her story to tell. Go ahead and read that for yourself. She did put it out there for everyone else to read. The reason being, she wasn't going to put it out there, but then she found that other people were involved. So, had to do it. Okay. Greg Spence put up initial response shortly thereafter, which was not good. Basically denying, putting it on the other person, saying that he didn't do anything wrong, admitting basically to a consensual sexual affair, but admitting to absolutely nothing else and taking a very defensive, combative stance. So then that was then. So now, this is September 3rd that I'm recording the video. This was a statement released the previous day on September 2nd. And I want to really focus on this idea of consent, which is why I fired up the video. Okay, so the statement says, first, I would like to apologize to Ms. Taylor. As I alluded to earlier in the remarks, I did engage in an improper but consensual relationship with Ms. Taylor. While I did not make physical or job-related threats to her, my actions were not in keeping with suitable employer-employee conduct. I can see from a perspective people saying, well, he apologized. He really owned up to it. This statement is basura. This is not a good statement. And I want to really drill down and focus men on the idea of consent. And the reason I'm shouting out men is because in my work as a psychotherapist, I see this every day, every week. I come into a situation where a man is in a relationship with a woman and they say, they agree. I'm really in a relationship with them. They have consent, even though from my perspective, it's a negative relationship. There's a power differential that the man has something that the woman wants or needs, and the woman just feels like they can't say no. So they say yes because they feel compelled by the structure of the relationship, or maybe some behaviors that are happening, or maybe the man has figured out the emotional keys, a way to manipulate the person's emotions so that they feel like they have no choice. Even though they're saying yes, they may be not doing it with their full hearts. We call it, when one of the responses to a tweet I put out about this, Olivia, I'll shout you out, called it enthusiastic consent, full consent. You need enthusiasm. You need a whole mind. There can't be any power differentials whatsoever when it comes to genuine consent. Consent can be manufactured by the circumstances. Consent can be compelled, which is a weird oxymoron, but that's where we are. When you manipulate somebody's emotions, when you isolate, when you do these strategies, how many men do I see? They may not physically or verbally be aggressive, but they're texting all the time. They're using the guilt trip. Oh, come on, this, that, third thing, texting nights, weekends, long threads. You look at the phone and it's like barely any room in the phone because of all the interactions that are happening from the man. And the man just convinces themselves that it's okay behavior. It's not. All right, so I'm going to jump in here. A full disclosure, there was a previous version of this video that was posted. I got a piece of feedback, and I wanted to stick something in here because I think it's directly relevant to this discussion. So I'm talking about, long text threads between lovers. And the person's feedback was of the essence of, well, that's every relationship, or most relationships, especially in the 21st century. Check any phone and you're going to see long back and forths, especially if they're arguing. What does this have to do with consent? Just a little bit confused and thinking that I'm not being genuine or straightforward in some way, or catastrophizing. Anyway, so let me be clear about what I mean by the long text messages, because not every text message, even when people argue, is healthy. I'm talking about those text messages, and I've seen them in my marriage therapy, where it's one party that is texting long bits, and then the other person responds once. Big patch of green, a little patch of gray, big patch of green, and it's just relentless, and it's happening all night, and it's like the proportion is like 80-90%. So that just the structure of that in itself, if that's what's happening, then that's a problem. The shorter the response is, the less the person is interested. And so I'm wondering if there's trying to cajole. And that's another thing. It's like, what is the quality of the responses? Is it pleading and cajoling and pulling on emotions, talking about the past, talking about future, talking and so is it, this thing that just is not reasonable whatsoever. It's just this long emotional thing, relentless, and it wears the person down. That kind of thing erodes full enthusiastic consent. That's number two. A lot of times you'll get the conflation of love and sex. And I'm talking to men. There's a lot of us that believe that love and sex are the same thing. So you get these things where it's like, okay, do you love me? Let's have sex. Do you love me? Let's have sex. Because the man truly believes, has been socialized to believe, that they're the same thing. This is how you prove you love me, is by having sex with me. And, on the woman's side, maybe they're still in the middle of processing what the relationship is. They haven't coded it as abusive or manipulative. They still love the person. And so they're thinking in their heads like, well, I love them. And they're saying that in order to show love, I have to have sex, even though I don't want to have sex, but I love him, going back and forth. And eventually the man wears the woman down. And, the woman in many, many cases will just give consent. And just say, okay, fine. And even after the fact, once the man has gotten the I'm fine, yes, let's do it. And, they don't check in. The woman should have the right to change their mind and withdraw consent. But a lot of times the man will just bowl forward. Well, you said yes. Or you said yes that night and we're doing it. Or you said yes however long ago. And, what's changed? Do you love me? What's changed? And, there's that just constant manipulation of emotions. And I see it all the time. And you can see it in people's text messages. And you can see it in the way they're acting. If you talk to the person about love and relationships, are they conflating love and sex? Problem. Flags. These are all flags. And just in a bigger picture sense, before I get back to the regular video, I definitely get the sense that a lot of men, they take the no, not as a no, but as a challenge. Now I have to woo. Now I have to employ emotional tools. Now I have to do, this is just the beginning as opposed to the end. Problem. Especially when it comes to the arena of sex. There's a fine line between courting and abuse. But I will offer to people where if there's a question about that line, am I courting or am I somehow diminishing, eroding consent? Well, when there's sex involved, that's something where you have to be really, really careful. So I'm just going to offer that and get back to the rest of the video. Hope that answers the question. Any time that the person is not given their full enthusiastic consent, then I don't care. Maybe you've met some sort of legal bar. This sounded like a lot of legalese, like, oh, please, don't sue me type thing. But that is not good enough for our community. You don't build a community by just meeting a minimum legal standard. You build a community by actually pursuing consent, full, enthusiastic, or it doesn't happen. Let alone when you have a power differential, a consensual relationship is impossible. Can't say that any clearer. So, if you are a man out there who either engages in or knows somebody else, a lot of us know at least one other person that's engaged in a relationship with a woman where they're saying, oh, they gave me consent. We could just do whatever we want. I'm friends with benefits with her. She gave me her consent. I'm this, that. I'm that with her. It's my ex. We're still doing whatever. She gave consent. What are they doing to get that consent? What are they doing to manufacture that consent? These are essential questions. If we want to make this a multicultural, a multi-perspective, a multi-gender space, if we're real about that, we've asked a lot. It's like, how do I ferret out the real problem, people? Well, here's a hint. Look at the men who are only relying on some kind of verbal, unenthusiastic consent. If they're engaged in those relationships, that's a big problem. So that's why I wanted to make the video. It just leapt out at me from the way that the dialogue was coming out and some of the responses to it and some of my experiences. Hope that helped. If you know a person like that, or if you're looking for more guidance, please, I'm actually open to this. I don't just want to make videos and leave it alone. I do interact in the comments, but if you do want personal help, I have helped people behind the scenes with stuff like this, with grief, with loneliness, with weight issues, with the things that different people go through in the community. Obviously, there's only so much that I can do. The door is not wide open. I'm not going to become a person's ongoing therapist. I usually kind of take people in terms of a crisis care type situation, get them through, and then help them link up with somebody else. But if you are in a crisis, or if you know if you don't know where to turn, if you're engaged in this behavior, you know somebody else is, and you don't know where to turn, hit me up. I'm very available. So that's all I got. If you could change your mind, you can change the world, people. So until next time, later, everybody.